everybody, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm doing a video that I normally do every year, and that is where I tell you guys my top 5 favorite albums from the previous year. So as you guys can tell from the title, today I'm obviously doing my top 5 favorite albums of 2018. There were a lot of great albums that came out in 2018, and I was really taking this list very seriously, trying to figure out which ones were going to make the cut. I've been doing top 5 as like my number for the past few years. And honestly, I could have made this list longer because there were a lot of albums I really enjoyed, but I came up with 5. You know, I really worked hard and made sure that it was a really crisp, good list for you guys. And I have 5 albums, and then I have a few honorable mentions, which I'll quickly mention in the end, as well as just put in the bottom bar. I think 2018 was a pretty great year for music, so I'm going to share with you guys my top 5 favorite albums. 5 to 1, 1 being my favorite album. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started.
Hiding my nerves behind the curtain. I'm caught up in an empty room filled with second thoughts and gloom.
So number 5 on my list is Composure by Real Friends. Now, as a lot of you guys know, I really fell in love with Real Friends this year. I was not a huge Real Friends fan before, but this year they just kind of won me over, especially with this new album. I got to see them a bunch of times this year, and I just really enjoyed this album. This album, honestly, I listened to it a lot, a little bit over the summer, but a lot when I first moved here, funnily enough, to Chicago. So listening to the album reminds me of when I first moved to Chicago, when I was first like getting acclimated to the city life, because I would listen to it like walking to the train or like on the train, stuff like that. So, and they're from Chicago, which is also really cool. So like, I don't know, it's special to me in that way. But there are a lot of really solid singles on this album. Obviously, it's a pop punk album. My favorite songs on the album are Me First, From the Outside, Smiling on the Surface, Composure, and Get By. And I feel like I just named like half of the album, but I have a hard time picking favorites, okay? But I think a lot of the singles are super solid. I think that obviously not every single song on this album is amazing, but it's a pretty solid pop punk album. It talks a lot about love, relationships, mental health. So I think it's just a really great, positive album. There's just a lot of songs that I think a lot of people can connect to, which is the reason I'm drawn to it. You know, instrumentally, it's pretty great. Lyrically, it is kind of cliche pop punk, but I don't know, a lot of these songs are songs I feel like I needed. And so personally, to me, this album is important to me for those reasons. You know, I relate to a lot of the songs on it. A lot of the songs actually really have helped me, you know, the past few months. So that's a reason I really like the album. The songs, they seem placed a bit randomly, and there is a lot of overlap on subject lines, like I mentioned before. They put their slowest song in the middle, which is Unconditional Love, which is a really great song. And there is a fantastic transition from Unconditional Love to Composure. So, fantastic. The title track is great, and overall this is a very solid pop punk album that you guys should all check out. Number 4 on my list is Belmont by Belmont. Yes, Belmont's debut self-titled album. I mean, I rep Belmont so much. I am just always talking about how great they are, and guys, this is going to be the year of Belmont, and honestly, they kicked off, you know, getting popular because of this album. When their debut album came out, a lot of people started figuring out who Belmont were, and I love it. You know, they deserve it. It is such an impressive debut pop punk album. This is the thing. It's like if they had already put out like a bunch of other music, and then they put out this album, it wouldn't be as like impressive to me, but the fact that this is their first debut full-length album and it's this good is just very impressive to me. Prior to this, they just had like 2 EPs, and those were really fantastic as well. But for a first album, pretty solid. My favorite songs are Convalescence, Interlude, Pushing Daisies, and Albert. There's some really amazing instrumentation in a lot of these songs, especially songs like Pushing Daisy and Interlude. Very unique instrumentation. When I first heard Pushing Daisies, like I don't know, I was like, wow, like who are these guys? And like, this song is very unique, which I really love. Also, the transition from Write Me Off to Pushing Daisies sounds really cool, as well as the transition from Albert to Hollowed Out. There's a lot of impressive lyricism in this album. That's the other thing. I'm just very impressed by the poetic lyrics that are in a lot of these songs. Just for our first album, this is very impressive. These guys are very young and they're doing just amazing things. So really encourage you guys to check this out. I don't think you guys will be disappointed. number 3, we have Proper Dose by The Story So Far. As a lot of you guys know, The Story So Far finally came back with a new album after like 3 years of being gone, and I kind of discovered The Story So Far. If you watched my last video, you'll know that. I wasn't really a huge fan of them, or didn't really just know a lot about them until this year, and I got to see a lot of these songs from this album live, which were really amazing, and this is another one of those albums that reminds me of Chicago because I was listening to it a lot before that show and just really getting into them. And it just reminded me a lot of like walking to class and just walking around the city, and yeah, I really just think about Chicago when I hear this album. It is a very, very wholesome pop punk record. It's full of everything. You got the bangers, you got the slow songs, and you have like some unique in between ones, which I really like. So I think it's a really great album for them to kind of come back on because you hear some classic The Story So Far, some nice slow songs, and then some new unique things that I've never heard from them before, which is really cool. My favorite songs on it are Proper Dose, the title track. That has been like my favorite song in general for a while. That song bops, okay? If I'm in a bad mood, I turn on that song and I'm instantly happy. It's great. But yeah, Proper Dose, Out of It, Upside Down, and Growing on You are my 4 favorite songs on the album. But honestly, they're all bops. A lot of these songs sound, like I said, like the old classic Story So Far, with a little mix of like the new and unique and like different ones, you know, which I really like. So you kind of have a bit of the old and the new. The 3 unique songs on the album are Let It Go, Line, and Growing on You. And when I say unique, I mean just like I haven't really heard The Story So Far do anything like that before, which I really like. Line is like a very soft, ambient kind of sounding song, and his voice is really light, and there's not a lot of lyrics in it. Same with Growing on You is a really cool song. It doesn't sound like The Story So Far at all, and that's like one of the reasons I think I really like it, is because it's just very unique. Like it doesn't sound like that. You would not guess it's The Story So Far at all, but I love the lyrics, and it just has this kind of like memorable, dreamy sound to it that makes me really happy. Also, the transition from Line to Growing on You is flawless. Like it is so satisfying. I love it. So this album as a whole is just such a solid pop punk album that I just love to jam to. I think it has a mixture of everything, like I said, and they just did a fantastic job with it.
May your brain cells swell with love.
Number 2, we have Swell by Tiny Moving Parts. Oh my god, this album, you guys. This album does not get enough praise. Like, people are not talking about this album enough. It does not get enough credit. Even like Tiny Moving Parts, I feel like they're still a bit underrated. I got into them this year because of this album, guys. I knew from very early on in the year that this album was going to be on this list because it blew me away. I was obsessed with this album in the spring, and I just fell in love with it. My favorite songs are It's Too Cold Tonight, Warm Hand Splash, and Malfunction. I love the instrumentation in this album because it's very unique, and I just love like the different riffs and the sounds that they use. I mean, it's really cool. I don't know, they're a unique band. I think that that's the reason I got into them really fast, is because I just hadn't really been listening to anybody like them. I think they know their sound and they just do it in a really great way. This album is also fantastic at like holding your attention. You know, sometimes you listen to albums all the way through and you catch yourself zoning out. I can't do that with this album. I'm always like brought back, you know, and there's just a lot of really fantastic hooks, and the hooks are either like in the beginning of the song, so they just kind of grab you, or there's great hooks in the chorus, but these songs are kind of up and down in a good way. The album is kind of all over, but that's its thing, if that makes sense. You know, that's kind of their thing, to be all over, so it always keeps your attention. And the lyrics in this are, you know, also a lot about like mental health and stability, and, you know, I guess, you know, like your lifestyle kind of, and, you know, once again, very relatable. There's literally a part in one of the songs where they're talking about a method to combat anxiety, where he's just like, breathe in, breathe out. You know, you don't really notice it when you're singing it, but you think about the lyrics and you realize that's what they're talking about. So a lot of relatable topics in this album, which I really love. And I have so much fun singing along to all these songs. Like, there is just so much passion in the lyrics and the way that they're sung, that when these songs come on, I can't help but just feel for the lead singer, you know, and feel the pain, and I just love it. The album starts out talking about like struggles and things, and by the end, the songs begin to like shift and just start to sound really hopeful. So it's like by the end of the album, you have this sense of hope that, you know, we can get through these problems, we can make it through, and it's just a really beautiful feeling that I love. So I don't know, I still think this album deserves more praise. I know a lot of people that really love it, but some people just don't talk about it at all. I'm surprised how many year-end lists it wasn't on, because I think It's a really fantastic masterpiece, and I think that a lot of people should talk more about it and give it a chance. If you haven't, it's great. And my number one most favorite album of 2018, I don't know if this will come as a shock to you guys. I mean, I literally cried during this concert vlog at their show, so maybe it won't, but that is The American Dream by Trophy Eyes. You guys, first off, I gave this album a terrific review when it first came out. If you want to watch that, I'll put a little eye right here, but literally guys, I praised this album when it came out. And it's weird because it took me like a week or two to really get into it, and then something like shifted when I listened to it like the, I don't know, 5th time, and I was like, oh my god, this is a masterpiece. It's, you know, it got a lot of, I don't say a lot of hate. There was controversy about this album because, you know, Trophy Eyes changed their sound and they weren't as hard, and, you know, I love Chemical Miracle, I really do, but this album is such a step up in terms of maturity, and I don't know, I mean, I think Chemical Miracle is a masterpiece in itself, but this is like a different type of masterpiece. They've gotten so much more mature, and when I saw them on tour for this album, you just see it, you know, live, seeing them live and singing these songs. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes, like y'all know. I was a mess at that show. Just such a fantastic album. My favorite songs on here, there's a few. Friday Forever, You Can Count on Me, Miming in the Choir, and I Can Feel It Calling. Love all those bops. I Can Feel It Calling perfectly sums up the album and just ends it on the most powerful note. Like this album, there's so many anthems on it, and it tells so many stories and it flows so wonderfully. It's a very powerful album that takes you on just a bunch of emotions, and you really get to learn more about John's life and the life of the band through this album. And obviously, if you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts on this album, please go watch my review, because I think this album is just so amazing. There's so much to dissect with it, that's why I don't want to get too much into it, but it's just fantastic. And you have a mixture of all different types of songs. I'm sure you guys all know, you know, You Can Count on Me, you might all know Friday Forever, but there's more to the album than those songs. And, you know, it really does take you on so many stories. And I tend to get lost in this album as well. It's hard for me to just kind of passively listen to it, because if you really listen to it in order and just as an album as a whole, you get sucked into the stories that John is telling, and it's so powerful. And it's almost like when I'm listening to the album, I can kind of hear his reasons for the lyrics and the meaning that he intends, but after listening to it a bunch of times, I tend to create my own meaning to the lyrics, and I'm sure others do this for music in general, but I don't know, I've kind of connected to some of these songs myself for different reasons, and I think it's just such a powerful album that I honestly feel like also deserves more praise. Like, my top 2 albums of the year, like, feel like don't get recognized as much. I don't know, but I mean, for people that hate this album, I guess I can kind of see, you know, you hate the new sound, but you have to see the maturity that is changed here, and the lyrical content is so incredible. I mean, like I said, the stories they're telling, they were being so vulnerable writing this album, and John's talked about that, you know, that he really put his all into this album, and that you can see sides of him he's never shown before, and you can connect to that, and I do connect to it in my own way, you know? So I think this is just a fantastic masterpiece, an album that I definitely love listening to all the way through, because you have songs like Broken, Tiptoe. The order is so crucial, you know, and those songs are put in certain places for a reason. So I think listening to this album really all the way through and taking the time to just appreciate it is so important. So if you guys haven't checked it out, please do take the time to listen to it and really immerse yourself in what the album is about, because it will take you away to so many places, and it's amazing. So there you guys go. Those are my top 5 favorite albums of 2018. Please comment down below and let me know what some of your guys' favorite albums are. You know, either give me a top 5 list or just tell me like your ultimate fave or a few of your faves, because I would really love to know. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And other than that, I will see you all next time. Bye!